astounds you. And then you sing next to someone and they say, well, I learned with other kids. You say, you did? And I knew it. I sang with them all the time. So I hope that I can share some of what's interested me, and I've been privileged to get to know people. All the people that wrote the songs in this book were just regular people. They were just regular, loving, excellent people. And when you get to know the people that knew them, it's like you get to know them. Secondarily, a lot of those teachers and writers are gone. But their students are all around you. The students of the people who wrote this music are sitting next to you. And they are your teachers. So you want to think on that. And we're privileged right now that they can get up and tell a story about a time that Elder Kitchens and Tony Smith got in a car together. You know, they can tell you these stories. And so I set aside this time with Sandra Wilkinson. She was my partner in crime. Because, you know, some years ago we got to talking. And she said, well, you know, Elder Kitchens was my teacher. And so this is how these things start. And so this is what we're going to do. We're going to sing about 9 pieces by Elder Kitchens and members of his family. But we have many special guests with us today. And they, if you sung with him, learned with him, knew him, went to church with him, you have the right to interrupt me at any time. Is that clear? So if you were, I don't need to say it again, you understand. If you have a personal story to share about Elmer Kitchens, just wave your hand at me and start talking. Got it? Got it, all right. Yeah. And we're really lucky that we do have people like that. Now, I don't want to draw undue attention, but Joy Jenkins is Elmer Kitchens' daughter. She's over in the back row. She'll wave at you. And next to her are Elmer Kitchens' great-great-granddaughters. So we have some family, and I think they're going to enjoy hearing these songs. Luckily, the singing we have at Camp Fasola are excellent. We observe time, tune, and accent. So I think you're going to hear these songs sung really well. And I think that Elmer Kitchens himself would have been really pleased by the fact that we have so many young people. Sandra tells me he was an outstanding teacher of youth and kids. So let's begin. Anniston, Schofield, and I are going to sing the song, The Shepherd's Flock. I think it is on
you pointed someone to the minutes in the book. For the book, yes, somebody has.
Do we have the secretary for this session of singing?
And where's the book?
And where's the book? 279?
279.
Now, if you look at the date on this, it's 1935. This is the earliest song by Elmer Kitchens in the book. And Elmer Kitchens went to travel with Tom Denson in the state of Texas. And you'll probably hear some stories about that. But this would date from that time. It's the earliest piece by him in the book. So I think it's fair to say it shows some influence of the Denson style. A la sola fa. talk about your friendship with him and what he meant to you?
Okay, I first got acquainted with Elder Kitchens probably in about 1950. Right. I had left a farm, parents, and over in Marion County, close to Winfield, Alabama. Went to the city of Birmingham, went to work in a cabinet shop for a cousin of mine, and he was a member of a church where Elmer pastored called Bush Hill. It's over on Greymont Avenue in Birmingham, North Birmingham. So I got going to church with him. I was raised in a primitive Baptist home, and so we went to work, went to church with Jasper Jenkins, cousin of mine that I was working for in the cabinet shop. And in the meantime, he was working on some pews that went in Bush Hills Church. They were being built. So I worked there a while, and my wife and I, we got married about 6 or 8 months later. So worked still a little while, and then we moved away, and then was gone a couple of years and came back to Birmingham, and in the meantime, they were building another church. So, called Mount Pleasant, a little further out on what is now I-65, then it's old Highway 31 north. So, I had an experience with him building that church house. We built it, and so later on, I joined the church. My wife and I, and Brother Elmer baptized us. I joined first, and later on, she joined, and I helped Elmer build a baptistry out behind the building. We dug, 2 or 3 other members, we dug a hole down and poured cement and laid blocks and bricks and so forth, built a baptistry so she could be baptized there, her and a couple more. Well, Elmer and I became pretty close friends. I thought a lot of him. I admired him and his family. As I mentioned the other day, he had 4 boys. Jackie, Katie, Jean, and Joe. And but anyway, he'd tell about him and his children when they were little younger. Anyway, he knew that I was interested in Sacred Heart singing. He, 2 or 3 years later, he taught a singing student at Mount Pleasant. And we had 3 children at the time. 4, okay. See, you see why I brought her along. But anyway, we all went to singing school there and had a good time. I had learned a little bit about Sacred Heart because my parents and grandparents were. But anyhow, I didn't learn the fundamentals of it until, he was a wonderful teacher. And he was the type of a person that when he saw you were interested in something, he really put forth a lot of effort. He stuck with you, and he would tell you. But if he thought that you were trying to outsmart him in some way, you couldn't try a note out of him or a word out of him with a crowbar. He was a very, I think, a unique person. The whole family was, and he had a wonderful wife. We loved her dearly. But I want to tell you a little on the comical side that an incident that happened. Elder Kitchen had a dry sense of humor. And he could keep you laughing. And he could tell you something funny, and you wouldn't know it was funny until he got through telling you. And then you might go off 2 or 3 days later and think about what he said. But there was an occasion that, and I think about this a lot. He told this, and he just laughed. He had a unique laugh about it when you get ticked. It was, I made the statement that it was going to Chicago, but it was Washington, D.C. Ruth Brown and some of them over in Anniston area, I guess, and got together a busload of singers to go up there to sing. And Elman was going to go, and but somebody died. Put it down. So they had requested that he conduct a funeral. But he wanted to go to the singing too. He said, I'll go, but I'll have to drive my car, but I don't want to go by myself. So some of you know a fellow over in Tuscaloosa, and he's got a song in the book, I think it's 379. A fellow by the name of Tony Smith. And, you know, you put the two together and you got a catch. And that was years ago. But anyway, Tony says, all right, we take time to drive. So they did. After the funeral, they left to go, and they got a way on up. I don't remember what state they said they'd driven several hours. And Elmer was, you know, he had a larger foot than some of us had got. And the car would move on when you got, you know, like that. So it's on a 2-lane highway, and they were top of the hill. And as he started down the other side of the hill, here stood a mule right in the middle of the road. So didn't have time to stop. You know. And it's a good thing that the highway wasn't heavily traveled. So Brother Elmer got to trying to stop that car or dodge that mule, and old mule just stood there and looked at him. It went by, and he run off of the road. And I think he did a wheelie or a donut off on the side of the road. And I imagine it scared him pretty bad. I know it would have me. And I'm satisfied that it kind of scared Tom. But they didn't say anything. You know, they went on down the road for, I guess, another 15 minutes. Elmer looked at Tom and said, "Did you see that mule?" Tony said, "No, I didn't see that." Elmer said, "No, I didn't either." So that was all that was said about that. It didn't tell me that. He wrote a song.
And tell me about that song. Will come with me.
Yes. The day that I joined Mount Pleasant Church, Elder Kitchen used this whole song with me. As his subject. And so during the sermon, he was preaching a while. And if you're familiar with the primitive Baptist preachers, you know, sometimes they will sort of sing their sermon. And this song was coming to him. And he told me later that he had thought about it, you know, and he had already beginning to write this song. So we had a wonderful connection with this song. And that was his subject. It's, "Oh, come with me from west, the mountain of the left. Let's go down to the river and see the tree of life. 'Tis blooming there in the midst thereof, make glad the city of God. And its leaves are for the healing of the nation." He took that and preached one of the best sermons I think I've ever heard in my life. So this song has been very dear to me. You want to sing it? You want to sing that?
Yeah.
It has one of the best melodies in the song I've ever heard.
I'm going to agree with that. Sandra sent me this in her copy of Kitchen's own book, which is called Songs of Zion. And I looked through all the songs that he wrote that I never heard, and I picked this one, and I started reading time. It said 2/4. Okay, I won't change to 6/8. Okay, I can do that. I started beating my time and singing through it, and I tell you, it took me about a minute to catch my breath, and I was done. This song just knocked me out. So I think what he's telling you, you might feel that too. Let me let you do the tenor before we sing all the parts. Oh, just listen to me. Sol, fa, fa, la, sol, fa, sol, sol, mi, sol, sol, fa, la, sol, fa, sol, la, sol, fa, sol, la, sol, la, sol, fa, la, fa, sol. Fa sol, fa sol, fa sol, fa sol, la sol, fa sol, la sol, la sol, fa sol, fa sol, fa sol, fa sol, fa sol, fa sol, fa. You get that? No, I sing that to you not because I think I'm the greatest singer, but I've spent some time with it, so I know where the accent is. And also because when we get it, we should get it right. So let's sing it in harmony. There's a couple things to know. When we come back and repeat the chorus, we'll change back to 2/4. Okay? And we're only going to repeat the chorus on the notes and the third verse. And I know you're going to enjoy it when we get to the third verse. Sol, fa, when you have 4 eighth notes in 2/4 time, that's a special case. The third eighth note takes the secondary accent. That's the only time that 2/4 time attains the secondary accent. Sol, fa, la, sol. If you sing all those 4 with the same weight, you're not singing it properly. So try to get that secondary accent on the third eighth note. And I think this song deserves to be sung again on the notes before we really do it. So attend to that accent a little bit. And listen to this. Tenor leads out. La, sol, fa, 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 fa. You see how that works? Catch that. The tenor gets there first, and then you all come in 1/8 verse later. All right, give me a little more accent and catch that. If you're not singing tenor, catch those entrances. Look at the bass. This bloom in there. Get that. Let's sol, fa. I told you this whole project got started with Sandra. So Sandra, maybe you could get up. Talk a little bit about what he meant to you. You like that song?
Yes. In 1962, and believe me, I was just a young girl then. In 1962, Elder Kitchens was called and asked if he would come to Hardeman Church, my home church near Decatur, Georgia, and teach a singing school, a 10-day singing school on the J.L. White revision of the White Book. And he agreed to do that. And he came, and like I said, he taught for 10 days. Sometimes we had classes, a few of them in the daytime for the younger people. And then we had them every night, Monday through Friday. And on the last night, we had something like a community singing, just like you all do here. And I remember that Mr. Hugh McGraw, and I had heard his name before, but had never seen him. But he and Charlene Wallace and Hugh's daughter and a bunch of people came from the Bremen area to that singing that night. So needless to say, we had a big crowd. And I kind of got to know Brother Kitchens better than most, I guess, because I had never been to a singing school before, even though my grandfather had taught one or two local singing schools in the area where we lived. And he had been a big Sacred Heart singer, very involved in the White Book revision and the White Book. And he also keyed most of the songs at all the singings around our area and at our church and everything. So he was big into music and Sacred Heart. He even taught some piano lessons, so, you know. But he was nearing 70 when I was even born. So at that time, he had kind of, you know, relaxed his duty and turned it over to others. And so when I got big enough to be interested in singing, he was much older, and so he didn't really take up a whole lot of time with my sister and I. But so I had never been to a singing school, so when we found out that Elder Kitchens was coming, of course I didn't know Elder Kitchens. Like I say, I was a young girl, and I was interested. I was interested in learning because I had been sitting by my aunt who sung alto. She had a beautiful alto voice, very unique voice, not like most that you ever hear. She could make enough alto for a bunch of singers just by herself. And I had been sitting by her because she had come up here and sit right by me, you know, since I was about that high. And I got that alto chord in my head, and I guess I've never lost it because I still sing alto because of her and because I love alto. But anyway, so I was interested in learning more about it. And so I attended every class, of course. And Elder Kitchens knew, like like you said, if he thought someone was interested, then he paid you a lot of attention. And he knew I was interested. I was more interested really than my sister was. And he really kind of took me under his wing. I'm sorry, I said I wasn't going to do this time. You know, some people come into your lives and you never remember them anymore. And then other people come into your lives and they leave a lasting impression on you. And that was the way with Elder Kitchens. Like I say, he took me under his wing. And every time we could get together, he'd come up and start talking to me and telling me different things, you know. And he was funny, like that's been mentioned. And he'd make me laugh. And of course, you know, that means a lot to young people. That he paid attention to me, he was funny, and he tried to get me involved. So he was writing this little song for the singing class, for the singing school. And he had already started writing, and he had written most of the music, but he gave the singing class the credit for all the music. And he had started a little bit on the words, and he says, "What do you think about this?" And I just thought, me, you know. And so he just kept getting me involved on the words. Well, on the Sunday between the 2 weeks of the singing class, there was a singing somewhere in the Macon area. And I had never been to a singing in the Macon area. But we got 2 or 3 carloads and went to that singing. And every time we'd stop or we was free to talk, he'd come up and say, get out of the car. I think we stopped for ice cream one time. I think we stopped for gas, maybe going down there. Ice cream on the way back. He'd say, get out of the car. You got to write this song, you know. And so he kept me involved in writing that song. And I think he more or less wrote the first verse or the first 2 little parts of the first verse. And the second and third, it had 5 verses, but he only used 3 of them in his Songs of Zion hymn book. And he got me involved in writing that song. And first thing you know, I was just writing off, you know, it just come to me, and I was just writing off verses. And I'd take them to him, and you know, he'd approve them, whether he liked them or thought they were, you know, suit or not. So anyway, we got the song written before the end of class. And it's a funny thing, in your handouts there, the name of it's Hardman.
On the back page.
Yeah, they'll be on the back page. He named it after my church. That was in 1962, and I'll go and tell this now. In 1967, he sent me a copy of one of his Songs of Zion hymn books with a little note to look on page 217 or whatever it was, that there was my song, Hardeman, and he had put it in his hymn book. And when I looked, he had given me credit for all the words. He was very generous and very kind. But I did write most of them, but not all of them. And he just used the 3 best verses. So needless to say, that made me feel very happy. And it made me love him even more. So we're going to sing Hardeman in a few minutes, but also you'll notice that he even did something else for me. He put it in memory of my grandfather. My grandfather had just passed away in March of that same year. So it was still very fresh on everybody's mind. So I thought that made me love him even more too. He involved me in so many things, and I loved him so much. And like I told before, he was older, several years older than my own father, but I had the biggest crush on him that you've ever seen. I really did. So whatever he said and told me to do, you know, I was with him because I thought so much of him. So we're going to sing Hardeman right now.
Fasola.
Oh,
to me. And I started reflecting back on things, because, you know, it had been a good while, a long time. And I started reflecting back on things, and once I did, everything came to memory, just like that. And my sister said, well, how do you remember all that stuff? I said, because when you like something, and you like someone, you don't forget easily. And I didn't forget that part. So that was my first singing school I went to. And it's been mentioned that he was not only a Sacred Heart singer, and by the way, he only had an 8th grade education, I believe that's right. And he was not only a Sacred Heart singer and leader and composer of songs, he was president of the Sacred Heart Publishing Company from 1966 until his death in 1979. And he was very instrumental and one of the major sources in the 1971 edition of the Destiny book. And he was also ordained a Primitive Baptist preacher. 5 generations. He was the 5th generation in his family. And Mr. Marlin said he had 4 boys. Well, he wanted boys, but he had 4 girls. But I think he tried to treat you like boys sometimes, didn't he? But anyway, I'm sure he was happy with his girls too.
Yeah, he was.
He was. And if someone, Aldo, would you bring me that little plywood thing over there? Or just hold it up? This is something that we made during the singing school, all the young people and kids, and it's got the first measure, I guess you'd call it, of the song Hardeman, and the words are written on the back, and he signed them. He signed everybody's. And Herman Wilkinson was also his assistant, and he signed them too. And it's got this little note on the back too. So we made those during the course of the singing school, those 10 days. And so everybody had a souvenir to take home with them. Do I know anything else?
You know.
He had visions and dreams too. And he told me about one of his dreams. And then he told me later he didn't know why he ever told me about that. And a lot of times he'd try to write songs from these. You know, he would just get caught up in them, and they would be so vivid to him that he would try to write songs. That he felt like that was his inspiration a lot of times to write songs. And so he had told me about this vision that he had just had prior to that. It was so real to him because he could almost still tell me nearly every detail. So we were busy though with the singing school, and after he left, I said to myself, you know, well maybe I can, you know, I did help do this one. Maybe I can help him write that song too. So I couldn't remember, you know, like I could help him write a song. So I couldn't remember everything he had told me, so I wrote him a letter and asked him to send me the information again, and maybe I could help him. So he did. He wrote me a letter, and Tom's been bugging me to find that letter. And I said, well, I'm sure I didn't throw it away, because things that were important to me, I didn't ever throw away. In fact, I'm kind of a pack rat anyway. And I've been looking for it. Last night about 5 o'clock, my time, I went to this one box again and went right to it, pulled it out just like that. So showed Tom the letter, and he wants a copy of it. But he told me about his dream, and in that letter, he says, I don't know why I ever told you about that. Of course, couldn't help write any words or anything, but at least, I felt like I was special because he had told me about that. And like I say, he was very special to me. My one big regret is that I didn't keep up my association with him. I saw him one time and maybe 2 after that. And so I regret that very much. But you know, when you're young, you have other things on your mind, and you're doing other things, and things like that, just a lot of times go by the wayside. So always remember that. If something or someone's important to you, don't let it go. Thank you.
Thanks. many of us have been learning here for the last 4, 5, 6 years, we have people who have made that impression on us. People will never forget. Aldo, I would like to ask you, without warning, would you lead a song? Sure. Would you lead the song Great Jehovah? Yeah. This is a song that was in the Sacred Harp. It used to be on page 540, and it's a beautiful song. And I think when you know that he's got his song of dreams and visions, you listen more carefully because he often knows the words. We're going to try to sing a lot. I wanted to give Marlon and Sandra time to really let you know what they meant, what other kids meant. But now I'm going to run through a lot of his music and let his words speak for him. Now this is called the Selected Songs of Elder Kids and Family, but I don't know if you knew that other members of his family have had songs as well. And we're going to sing this song. It's in your packet. It's called In Thy Praise. And you see the author is given you missionary pictures. And she's still living. We have the privilege of singing with her just 2 weeks ago. It's a beautiful thing. And Jesse, will you read this?
Sure. One thing I should point out before we sing it, if you look at the bottom of the page, there's a repeat on that ending section, and the for the bass, tenor, and treble, the notes are different each time through. So what that means is that we have to take that repeat every time we get to it. So we'll repeat that on the notes and on both verses.
don't know, Mary Gardner, this name you probably hear more often, but she's a very distinguished and elegant leader. Somebody that a lot of people admire in her, both her directing. And so we were really privileged a couple weeks ago to see her direct 196. It was just superlative. But when Sandra was inquiring with people about Elder Kitchens, do you know at least 5 or 6 people said, I remember him leading 181.
That was in my mind, I got mentioned a while ago, but
Yeah.
nobody that I have ever seen lead 181, I can hear it sung today, and it's not the same song as it was one day.
So I'm wondering if we could squeak that one in, and I have a leader in mind, Justin Gazzaro, if he's here. And maybe otherwise busy. 181.
That was his favorite song to lead.
He made mention one time that he almost lost the cotton crop learning to lead this song. But no, he learned what.
Another one of his sisters has a song in our book as well, on page 545. So this is a very musical family. And I'd like to ask Miss Joyce Walton, who knew Irene, to get up and direct this on the stage. A little word for Irene.
Well, to you people that didn't know Irene, this is the truth. She was a very jolly, happy lady. And I got to knowing her and A.L. Barker, her husband, back in 1957. And A.L. would sit in the chair on the corner of the center, on the end of the pew. Bob Denson would sit in the first chair on the treble, and Irene would sit by him. And she was a lot of fun to be with. I always enjoyed singing with Irene and A.L. A.L. passed away, and Mr. Bob Denson's wife passed away, and Irene and Uncle Bob married. And I sung with them for the rest of their lives. And just couple of weeks ago, when we went to the adult camp, instead of going to the singings that Sunday, we went to the cemetery where Bob's buried. And it was quite a treat to me to get to go to Bob's grave. And of course, Seaburn Denson and his wife's buried there too. And that was at Pisgah Cemetery, and I lived at Pisgah, Alabama. So it meant a lot to me to go and to the cemeteries. Then we went on to the other cemetery where the rest of the Densons were buried, or part of them. But Irene was one of the most jolly people you ever seen singing. Now, we have a lot of fun over on travel once in a while, and we learned some of that from Irene. So she certainly enjoyed her singing. Let's sing 545.
La,
That song doesn't get sung very much, and I think it deserves to be. And I think in particular, you won't hear finer alto passing notes in any composition, so I think we should try to sing that a bit more often. We have two songs left to sing, and I want to thank everybody for their attention and respect and enjoyment of this music. The song, and Marlon, feel free to say a word, but I'm going to tell the story as I got it from you, and you correct me when I get off track. We're going to sing a song called Weasel. And anybody remember, a lot of people have a right to overrule me. I don't like it, but I'll do it. Teachers are that way. So I had a real nice conversation or two with Marlon on the phone. We spoke for many hours. And he told me the story of this song, and I'm going to try to tell it as well as I can. And you help me if I do it. Liesl was Elmer's brother. And Liesl was married to the sister of Elsie, who wrote the poetry. And Liesl passed away. And I don't remember how.
Hey, there's a coal mining accident.
Coal mine. And so he left a widow, and her sister wrote the poetry, and Elmer wrote the words, memorializing his brother Liesl. Now, they had a daughter whose name was Marlies, because Liesl's wife was named Martha. So you take Martha and Liesl, and their daughter was named Marlies. But Marlies must have been only 1 year old or less maybe when her father passed away.
don't know if she was born yet.
Yes, I think
She was just very small.
Just less than 1 year old, am I right?
Right, less than that.
And Marlise still living.
It was just a little time, but Marley's not right.
Still living. Now Elsie went on and became part of your family though. Isn't that right? How did that happen?
Okay, Miss Elsie's husband, Hugh McCullough, passed away. And my mother passed away in 1967. Elmer conducted her funeral. And a few years later, my dad and Miss Elsie married. They lived together about 8 years before my dad passed away.
So let's sing this song. This is a eulogy for Elmer, by Elmer for his brother with poetry by the sister of his boy. Fasola, we have a table of items there that have been donated by family members, by Sandra, and after the singing's over, go over there and look at it. There's some of the materials he used when he was writing his songs, and some of the different songbooks he published. And Joy, if you want to say anything, you don't have to, but if you want to get up and say anything, just, you are a guest, and want to recognize you and let you have a moment if you want. And actually, I'd like to lead 568 with you, but we people from the east.
358.
No,
360.
No, 568. There must be something in the room here. I know you like 358. I'll leave that with you too. But you have something to sing, and then we'll sing your song.
But I just want to thank everyone for what all they've done. This has really been an honor to our family. And it's revived, right? I hope it's singing more. I just appreciate everything.
Let's sing that 358 together. And then we'll close with 568. But me and Joy are going to lead 358.
Mom also announced about the souvenir leaflet things on the table.
Yeah, maybe you and me will get 568 after the girls. Yeah, you're right. That sounds good. Yeah, it's good. Is there a reason? So, we use that.
568.
568.
I called this a whole program, A Life of Faithful Service, and I took that quote from the song. So talk to some of the people that do it. Me without a book is feel. Thanks. It's not right, I'm a teacher. I just said it is, man. I'm not to that point where I can be without a book yet.
by, so please get one to keep.
Yep, and we're actually going to have a closing song. When this song is over, we are dismissed, because I want Elder Kitchens to have the last word. The song is 512. Think a little bit about those dreams and visions when you sing this song.
He also told me a little bit about this song when he wrote one of the visions and dreams that he had had. And if you notice the words, they were taken from Ecclesiastes. Go back and read them sometime and see how the connection is. This is one of my favorite songs that he wrote.